Okay, so a report coming out says Sidney Crosby is feeling optimistic about getting a contract extension done with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, my take on this is going to be a bit of a hot take. I don't know how many people are going to agree with this. Maybe a lot of people do believe that he should remain with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and there is an argument there. That maybe he should just retire with the Penguins. I mean, he's won 3 cups and Olympic gold medals. He's got everything that you could ever want a player to get. I mean, he's unbelievable. Top 5 player of all time, let's be clear. But the problem with this is if he wants to win, is Pittsburgh where you could win? I'm not personally convinced about that. You have McGroarty, who they just traded for. They do still have Carlson, and Malkin is still a decent player, but I mean, they did get a little bit younger with McGroarty. That was a pretty decent little trade. I think he's going to be pretty good, but he better be damn good. And I'm just really worried, missing the playoffs 2 years in a row now. They just seem like an aging team. So it might make sense for this guy just to get out of there. Now, on the other hand, maybe it is just good for a player like that to retire a Pittsburgh Penguin. Like, I don't know what it would be like to see Sidney Crosby in any other jersey but a Pittsburgh Penguin jersey. I mean, it would look very, very weird. He's had so much success there. The fans absolutely love him. The organization from top to bottom love him. But man, maybe if he wants to win, this is a bad choice. Like, I don't think there's any doubt about that. If he just left and went somewhere else, he would absolutely have a better chance to win. I mean, the core is just aging too much, even though this guy scored like 94 points last year, and he's still pretty much carrying the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they got Malkin, and I said last year when they got Erik Karlsson, I was like, listen, I like Erik Karlsson. He struggles defensively, but I just think the Pittsburgh Penguins are over the hill. And it really, really is difficult to watch them just keep on going back to the well and keep on going back to the well. Listen, I remember when Sundin was around with the Leafs, it was the same thing, keep on going back to the well, and I was like, the team just needs a rebuild. Honestly, what Sidney Crosby, the best thing that Crosby can do, and I know a lot of Pittsburgh Penguin fans might not want to hear this, but you probably just trade him, get assets, and just start the rebuild. Start the rebuild before it gets even worse, because the more you drag this on, the worse that everything is going to get. But I mean, this guy's like a 5 or 6 time 100-point guy. I mean, Olympic gold medalist, top 5 player of all time. I mean, I guess I try to reiterate this to my own fandom, so I'm a Leaf fan. If the Leafs were clearly an aging team, clearly not in their prime, clearly the window was closed, or at least closing, like, do I think that Pittsburgh could make the playoffs? Sure, it's possible. But if I was in the situation as a Leaf fan as they are, I think I would want to see him traded. I really do, because you could get a lot of assets for him, and it could really boost and do what's best for your franchise, which a lot of the time does make sense for fans. It's not that we don't want a player to stick around. It's just that in situations like this, it is what it is. Like, the writing is on the wall when it comes to Sidney Crosby, in my opinion. Like, he's not done. Like, Sidney Crosby, if you scored 90 points, he ain't done. But when your roster is aging this much, I just can't see it unless Rucker McGroarty comes in, absolutely kills it for the Penguins. But I mean, I think he's going to be a really good prospect. But and that is a really good move. But at the end of the day, when Sidney Crosby's there, he is not going to allow for a full strip down and rebuild. Which, by the way, I fully understand. These guys are competitive. They got egos. They're competitive. They want to come back every single year and compete. And I completely understand that. But in other situations, I'm like, dude, it's just best if you move on, allow the franchise to rebuild. He could go to another team. Like, God, can you imagine this guy in like Colorado or a Dallas, Vancouver? I would love to see him on the Leafs. Like, man, those teams would be unbelievable, and he'd have a real chance to win the Stanley Cup in those teams, because those teams are at least in their prime. None of them are perfect, but man, I would love to see him in Colorado. I don't know how they would fit him under the cap or anything like that. I mean, I'm not looking into the the analytical cap situation or whatever, but God, it would be so nice to see him in any one of those teams. Dallas is a hell of a team, and then just let this guy go and let this guy have a chance to actually win Lord Stanley's Cup somewhere else. It just makes so much sense. And I don't know what fans would disagree with me on this. Like, yes, I know you must love Sidney Crosby if you're listening to this. I know you probably love Sidney Crosby. I totally respect that. I love Sundin, these guys. But sometimes you just got to do what makes sense, and you just have to let these guys go. Let them go. You got Rucker McGroarty. You can get assets for Malkin and Crosby and Carlson. Unfortunately, that's just straight up not what's not going to happen. Kyle Dubas has been given clear instructions on what to do and to keep this guy around, and that's it. I am interested to see, though, what exactly Sidney Crosby is going to get. Sidney Crosby is known for taking less to ensure that his team is going to win. I'm really interested to see what he's getting paid and the length of the contract, too. Because he's probably going to want a little bit of a longer contract for a 37-year-old than you'd imagine, because he wants to secure that he can have the ability to play, right? So I'm really super interested to see what exactly this contract is going to look like. This one is going to be, it's not going to be bad. It's still Sidney Crosby. You can't say it's a, quote, bad contract when you're getting a player like Sidney Crosby, right? But yes, apparently Sidney Crosby is expecting the contract to get done before the season, I believe he said. That's his expectation anyway. Now, who knows? A lot of these things could trickle into the season, and it could drag on. But it looks like this is what the Pittsburgh Penguins are doing. Perhaps they want to keep their core and rebuild on the fly. I like their move of getting Rucker McGroarty this time. I didn't mind their move of getting Erik Karlsson. Like, it's not a bad move on paper. Like, Erik Karlsson's still pretty good, but it's just like, it just is what it is, right? Like, yeah, you can't improve what is already past. That's what I'm trying to say here. Like, sometimes when teams are past their prime, they just are what they are, and you just have to move on from this entire situation. But anyways, that is my take. I am going to leave this video here. I appreciate it if you watch this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right. And thanks, guys. Have a great night.